Hello, and welcome to this video on using our Stage 3 camera kits. Let's start by going over the kit's contents. Here, we've got the Panasonic S5 II camera with its 20 to 60mm lens. We've got the main supply for the camera and the spare battery. This is the onboard audio mixer. We've got a pair of DT770 studio headphones here. This is our Rode Wireless Go receiver and transmitter. We have an external battery charger, a Rode Video Mic Pro Plus, the lav mic for the wireless kit, and a variable ND filter. And finally, we have 3 mini jack to mini jack cables for the audio devices, along with a micro USB cable and a USB-C cable, both for charging. The core of the kit is the Panasonic S5 II, which is a 6K full-frame mirrorless camera capable of shooting in various formats. It has an interchangeable L-mount lens system which can be adapted for Canon EF lenses. The kit you see ships with a 20 to 60mm lens running at f3.5 to f5.6 depending on the zoom length. We also have 50mm f1.8 lenses available to book, along with a selection of Canon EF lenses and the adapter to make them work. The S5 has exceptional low light performance, great colour and fantastic sound features, so let's take a look at setting it all up. First thing to do is make certain that the battery is charged. Its compartment is here on the base. Just slide this and the door will open. Press this button to unlock the battery. Take it out for charging or use the USB-C cable to charge it inside the camera. If you're using the external charger, just put the battery in and connect the charger with either the micro USB or the USB-C cable. The SD card for this camera is located behind this door. Press it to pop it out and put it in the computer for downloading. These cameras ship with 128GB SD cards as standard. Let's set the camera up on the body. Make certain that you have the left dial set to this symbol and the right dial needs to be set for motion picture use, which is this one right here next to the white mark. Flip this switch and the camera will boot up. Remember to take the lens cap off as well. Flip out the screen so that you can see what's happening at this point. There we are. First thing we want to do when you get the camera is to format the SD card to remove any data that's already on it. To do this, press the menu button here and then scroll down or use the selector to move to Menu 6, Page 1. Press Enter on Card Format and then select Card Slot 1, and that will allow us to delete the data. Next thing we want to do is reset the camera to its factory settings. So in the same menu, I'm going to scroll down now to page 6 and go to Reset, selecting Yes for all options. With that done, let's put the camera into manual mode. If we select the top menu in the first page, we can change the exposure mode to M for manual. That will allow us manual control over aperture and shutter speed. We can then come out of the menu using the back button down here, where you can see that we now have control over the shutter speed and the aperture. The ISO is still on automatic, so if we press the ISO button here on top of the camera, we can change that to whatever value we like. This camera produces very little noise, so choose any value that gets you the exposure you need, as long as it's lower than about 10,000. At this point, I have full control over image brightness using the aperture wheel. Of course, the shutter speed for shooting what we're doing should be set to 50. There we go. While we're on the body, let's make sure that this dial here is set to MF for manual focus control. This allows us to use the front ring on the lens to change the focus of the camera. The back ring on the lens is for the zoom. If you don't like the fact that it zooms in when you're focusing, you can change that by going into Menu and then selecting the second option and coming down to MF Assist here and selecting Focus Ring Off. Next thing to do is to change the recording quality. go back into the menu and select the top option. Here on page 3, we have various options for the format that's being recorded. If I select the file format and change that to MOV, we'll get the highest quality recording possible with this camera. The S5 has a lot of options for recording formats, so we're going to change the rec quality now from the option it defaults to one on the second page, this one right here. This is going to record in Cinema 4K at 25 frames per second at 422 10-bit. While there are some options much higher up than these, they're quite specialized and they don't have the 422 quality that this format delivers for us. Once that's done, I can come out and the camera is in its correct recording format. At this point, it's probably quite useful to set the clock in the camera so the files are time-stamped. You can do that by coming into the menu and then selecting menu 3. On page 7, the last menu, we can set the time and date. That way, any files recorded will be time-stamped for easy identification later on. Setting the white balance on the camera is very straightforward. Just push the WB button on the top. Let's scroll through now to select a custom white balance option, press up, and present the camera with something white before pressing the set button. Sometimes if the exposure is a little high, you might need to turn down the aperture to get a good white balance reading. Now it's in full manual mode and on the right file format. You can see on the screen that we have a battery indicator down here and a recording time indicator here. This camera has no limit on its recording, so it'll record for up to 1 hour and 53 minutes onto that 128GB card that you saw earlier. At this point, the camera is ready to go for recording. All we have to do is press the record button here on top to start the recording and once more to stop it. You can get slightly more image quality from the camera by adjusting the color settings in the menu. On page 1, we can change the photo style here from standard to a slightly adjusted version. If we reduce the contrast down to -5, it gives us slightly better contrast and a little bit more detail in the shadows. While you're in there, you might want to turn the saturation down slightly, and on the second page, turn up the sharpness and turn off the noise reduction completely. This camera produces very little noise anyway, so noise reduction is just removing detail unnecessarily. If you're shooting somewhere very bright, and you find it very difficult to control the exposure, you might want to use the variable ND filter that's in the kit. Simply screw it onto the front of the filter that's already on the lens, and rotate the front dial to adjust the level of neutral density filtering for the image that you need. It's like sunglasses for your camera. Getting good audio with this camera requires us to add on a few extra things. Each kit comes with an onboard camera mixer, just like this one. There are actually 2 kinds with the kits, but they're both exactly the same electrically. To get this set up, first slide it onto the hot shoe of the camera and secure it down as you normally would. You'll notice on the front of the device that there are 4 sockets available for putting audio in and taking audio out. These are where we're going to be cabling our microphones into and then sending audio out to the camera so we can actually record it. First things first, let's get a microphone on top. We're going to start with the Rode Video Mic. Let's take a look at that first. These kits come with a Rode Video Mic Pro Plus, the top of the range Rode Video Mic. Turning it on is fairly straightforward. All you have to do is just hold this power button down and the microphone should power up. It doesn't take batteries, it simply recharges using this socket here on the side and the micro USB cable from the kit. It's important when using this microphone to make sure you have the maximum possible volume coming out of it. To do that, press this dB button on the right hand side here until the +20 light is illuminated at the top. That gives us the maximum possible volume output. Now let's put it on the camera. Simply slide the microphone in and tighten it up as required. With the mic on, it's time to cable it up. First, let's take any of the 3 mini jack cables from the kit. If you've got one with a screw connector on the end, this is the one to use with the Rode mic. If not, well, it doesn't matter. We're just going to push this in here and tighten it up if you have it. If you don't worry about it, just push it in. On the front of the mixer, we can now plug our microphone into either the left or the right socket. I'm going to plug it into the left socket. Now let's add a second mic. This kit also comes with a Rode wireless microphone, either the Rode Wireless Go 1 or the Rode Wireless Go 2. They're very similar and they both work in exactly the same way. To turn them on, simply press and hold the button on the bottom. Do the same for the receiver, that's the one with the screen. These don't take batteries, they're rechargeable with the USB-C cable we included. You can see the battery levels here, and you can also see that some signal is already coming through because this transmitter actually has a microphone built into it. If you don't want to use that, if you want something a bit more discreet, then we can get out the lav mic that's in this little pouch. We can cable that into the transmitter there, ready for use. Now my voice is being picked up here on this microphone. Just like with the Rode video mic, it's important that these microphones be producing the maximum possible volume before we run them into our mixer. So on the receiver, make certain that you press the dB button here enough times that this small triangle ends up being filled. This indicates that the device is outputting the maximum amount of sound. On the Rode Go 2s, press this button to keep changing the dB number until it's at its maximum level. With the mic set up, we can add it to our rig. I'm going to suggest putting this microphone here on the left-hand side. To get it in, just slide this little clip into the shoe there and it'll be secured and ready to go. Now let's cable this mic up by coming round the front. Taking another of our cables, and this time going from the right input to the input on the mic, which is just underneath around here. With both microphones in, it's time to cable the mixer back to the camera. We do that by taking our third and final cable and coming out of the out socket here. We go into the microphone socket on the camera, which is located behind this door. It's the top of the two connectors. And just like that, our mixer is successfully cabled into the camera. At this point, it's also time to plug the headphones into the bottom socket. Again, pushing them... At this point, it's also time to plug the headphones into the bottom socket. Again, pushing them right the way in. Once you've plugged something into the camera, you'll see that a series of icons change on the screen, indicating that external audio is now in use. So now let's set up the camera to record the audio the way we want. Press the menu button and come down to page 6 on the first menu. We can first start by setting the headphone volume here up to 15 so that we can hear everything that's going on. On the next page up, we have various options for sound recording. Here, we need to make some adjustments. The first thing is to turn the mic socket from mic with power down to just normal mic. This will save some battery life because we don't need power for the microphones, they have their own power. Next thing is to change the sound limiter from on to off. And the final thing to do is to change the sound level adjust here from 0 dB down to -10 because we're using that external mixer. This allows us to get the best possible quality sound without boosting the signal up inside the camera. It's important at this point to make sure that the switch here on the back of the mixer is set to S, not M. That allows both sides of the stereo signal to be fed into the camera, and it allows these two dials here to control the sound separately. Now we can start testing this out. If I turn up the left dial here, you'll notice that the microphone on the left channel starts to produce sound. And you'll remember that when we plugged it in, that was the Rode mic here on top. So we're going to set that for a peak level of about -6 dB, which is there. And we can do the same with our wireless microphone as well on the right channel by simply turning this dial here until we get the signal that we need at the right level we want. And by listening to this through the headphones as well, you get a better idea of what it is that you're actually recording and what the quality is like. It's worth remembering that the camera will produce a 4-channel file irrespective of what's recorded, even though you've only got 2 microphones plugged into it. This can be edited in post-production to remove the 2 remaining audio tracks and split up the 2 audio tracks that you've actually recorded. With the audio set up, remember to press Set to save your settings and then come out of the menu. When you're ready to actually start recording, you can see on screen a visual representation of the levels so you can adjust them as you're going.